The night side of Earth floated like a chandelier of cities when the silent ship arrived. It dropped from FTL without a flare, without an escort, without any name that the traffic towers could speak with confidence. And yet every alarm that should have screamed stayed strangled in its throat. Controllers at Lagrange Station Series Arc felt their screens tilt from familiar to uncanny. The hull reflected no stars, and yet held all their shapes in a shifting grey sheen, like a thundercloud that learned geometry. Across its bow ran a pattern of broken stripes, yellow and black like hazard tape. And under that, a bruised blue that the station chief, Mara Qureshi, remembered from a single planetary atlas, Karth, a world used as a cautionary tale in training modules, a place where gravity ripped at bones, where storms spoke in lightning for months, where even bacteria wore armor. Unknown ship, declare registry, Mara said, her voice controlled, her heart not quite so. The channel carried a reply in a human accent gone slightly slant, as if it had grown up in a mouth that learned vowels from vacuum. Requesting docking clearance, human port. This vessel carries a returning pilot under Article Haven. Article Haven meant you did not ask how a traveler survived. You offered air and warmth first. It was old law, older than the Council, older even than the first drive that snapped a star's distance into a week's jump. Mara felt the briefing whispers of a dozen diplomats and 1,000 soldiers gather behind her eyes. She turned one ring on her console and watched the defense grid pivot, not aiming, just listening. Transmit clearance token, she said. The reply arrived as a string of tones that made the console lights dim for a heartbeat. The ship had spoken to their systems like it was touching a pulse at the wrist. The token checked out against a forgotten archive, origin tag, human expeditionary. Logistics, classified 3 tiers above anything Mara had ever handled. The docking clamps took hold like careful fingers, and the ship responded by letting small lights bloom along its seams. Not navigation lights, Mara noticed, but little beads like dew. As if the ship was sweating in relief, the airlock cycled with a gentle sigh. No hiss, no dramatic rush, and a man stepped through. Not tall, not armored, wearing a flight suit bleached by more suns than Mara had seen. He removed his helmet even before the pressure finished equalizing, as if he trusted the station more than the station trusted him. His hair was cut practical, his eyes were the color of old sea glass, and on his cheek lay a thin lattice of scars like frost. He smiled in a way that said he had spent years learning how to make people relax. Pilot Arlen Tade, returning. He said, requesting medical clearance, debrief, and a glass of water. Mara nodded and offered the water first. The law of Haven echoed in her bones. He drank like a man listening to a hymn, small sips, eyes closed. When he finished, he placed the eye glass with the kind of respect people usually save for flags. Thank you, he said. It's good to hear human air breathe back. What is that ship? Asked Inspector Jin, who had walked in with a security team and a face that always looked like it had just discovered the word no. Arlen glanced through the viewport where the hull's gray sheen pulsed very softly. A friend, he said. Built by a world that kills the unready, mastered by hands that choose to learn. Karth, Mara said, not making it a question. Arlen nodded once. Slowly, every person in the bay seemed to become aware of their own heartbeat. We have stories about that world, Jin said. None end with a pilot strolling into my station with a smile. Most stories are weather reports with the wrong season, Arlen said. We trained there, some of us, before the Council, dared to put a line on a map and call it safe. We learned to build ships that do not fight the storm but understand it. Humanity has a talent for listening when the wind is louder than pride. Mara led him to debrief. A room with glass walls and soft seats. She offered a medical scan, which he accepted with the ease of a man who knew needles better than knives. The scanner hummed and returned numbers that made the medic whistle, bone density higher, microfractures healed in patterns like tree grain, an immune system tuned like a choir. You should be dead, the medic said without cruelty. Arlen shrugged. Karth disagreed. They began the questions. Who sent you? What happened to your unit? Why now? Each answer unfolded like a map that only revealed roads. If you believed roads could grow, Arlen spoke of storms that lasted a year and shredded metal into sand, of shelter dug into lightning glass, of a training cadre who said, "If you can make a ship that rides this, you can ride anywhere." "Why come home?" Mara asked. Arlen looked at the viewport again. The ship's dew lights winked in a slow wave. "Because the thing that hunts masters learned our scent," he said. "It started to follow the signatures of drive cores tuned on Karth. It will follow me here. It will follow the ship to your sky. If we do not teach your defenses what my friend can teach, you will not have time to learn after it arrives." Jin's hand hovered over a silent alarm. "You brought danger to Earth and you want a medal," he said. Arlen shook his head. "I want a classroom and an hour," he said. "Then a yard with vacuum and a handful of skeptics. Let the ship choose who can hear it, then you can choose whether to arrest me." Mara studied him. She had served long enough to know the taste of bravado. This was not it. This was a man, carrying a heavy object in two hands and asking for a table. "You said your ship is a friend," she said. "What does it want?" Arlen's smile returned, small and tired. "It wants the same thing I do," he said. "A future that does not end with the loudest machine. It wants someone who is brave in quiet ways. It wants a human who carries others even when the path is broken." In the viewing bay, techs and dockhands had gathered by instinct, staring at the hull that refused to show them their own faces straight. A child visiting on a school tour pressed her palm against the glass and whispered, "Is it alive?" The ship's lights flickered in a pattern that matched the rhythm of her fingers on the glass. And the child laughed, a high, clear note that made seasoned officers forget to frown. The station's long windows showed Earth turning, cloud scrolls curling over oceans. Arlen stood as if the planet itself had called his name. "We will need to speak to the council," Jin said, "because protocols are comfort when the unknown knocks." "We will need to see your logs," Mara added, "because truth must be shared before it can be trusted." Arlen reached into his suit and placed a drive on the table. It looked like a stone washed by rivers. "The log is old and missing pieces," he said. "Not because I hide them, but because storms sometimes write in teeth. You will still see." "Enough. You will see why the ship came here, and not to any other port." Above them, the hull's dew lights flowed again, like a breath taken by a singer about to start a song. Alarms did not sound, but hearts did. Quietly, the station aligned. Tug drones drifted to standby. Defense guns rotated to neutral. And in homes across Earth, people looked up without knowing why and felt the kind of hush that comes before a first note. Mara closed her hand around the Riverstone drive. She met Arlen's sea-glass eyes and nodded. "You will have your hour," she said. "Teach us before the hunters arrive." Arlen exhaled, the relief of a traveler who had brought a warning across a desert and finally found a well. He touched the viewport with 2 fingers, and the ship's lights pulsed back in greeting. On a death world far away, storms turned old mountains into powder and wrote new lines in a sky made of knives. Here, in human air, a different storm gathered. Not of wind, but of choices. And the first choice had just been made. The debrief room had grown quieter than a tomb as Mara slid the strange Riverstone drive into the console. The glass wall dimmed to a screen, and words began to shape themselves, not in neat military reports, but in rough fragments that looked like someone had written with broken light. The first entry showed the outline of a camp under 2 suns, half buried in glass sand. A voice spoke over it, harsh with static, yet human enough to tug at the heart. Day 12. We built shelter inside the wreck of a crawler. Storm ate 3 walls, but the bones held. Karth does not let the careless live, but it lets the stubborn try again. Jin folded his arms, skeptical. "This could be fabricated," he muttered. But Mara noticed how every tech in the room leaned closer, as if the story's gravity was pulling them in. The next entry showed storms like entire oceans turned upside down, rivers of fire in the sky, lightning ripped mountains into ash, and Arlen's younger face appeared on the log, his cheeks hollow, eyes fierce. Day 90. 2 cadets left shelter to prove themselves. We buried empty suits today. Karth whispers arrogance into your ear and then laughs when you answer. A silence spread across the watchers. Everyone knew loss, but to hear it spoken with such stripped honesty made it hard to breathe. Mara turned to Arlen. This was training, she asked. Arlen nodded. Not sanctioned by the council, not logged in your proud archives, but training all the same. We believed a world that kills without malice can teach better than a classroom filled with theory. The log shifted again, showing strange beasts. Creatures like winged serpents with hides of crystal. They glided through electrical storms as if born from them. Day 200, the voice continued. We studied the sky leviathans. They do not fear storms. They listen to them. Their wings shape the current like a bow across strings. They taught us that resistance is wasted. Harmony saves, the medic whispered. Harmony saves, as if it was a prayer. And Mara realized the ship's dew lights, still visible through the viewport, pulsed in rhythm with the recording, as if it remembered the same lessons. Then the log darkened, showing twisted metal and bone. Day 350. The voice rasped. Hunters arrived, not beasts, not storms, machines. They searched for what we were building. They tore through glass fields like knives through cloth. We ran, we hid, we lost half our cadre in a single breath. The watchers shivered. The image showed machines blacker than space, each one shaped like a shard of broken mirror. Their eyes red with unending hunger. Arlen stood silent as his past replayed. His hand gripped the table edge until his knuckles whitened. Mara saw it and felt the truth behind his warning. The final entry flickered to life. Day 402, Arlen's younger self said. Voice trembling. I am last. Storms buried the crawler, comrades gone. The ship we forged from Karth's storms breathes only for me. If I fail, it will wait. If I succeed, it will learn. If anyone finds this, know that the galaxy does not understand danger. It only votes about it. Karth taught me no vote will save you when the sky itself is hunting. The log ended, leaving the room filled with only the sound of hearts. Mara swallowed hard. You are saying these hunters followed. You hear? She asked. Arlen nodded slowly. Their sense is not sight, it is hunger. They trace the echo of a Karth-forged drive. They have never stopped since they first tasted it. Jin slammed a palm on the table. So you have doomed Earth, he accused. Arlen's voice stayed calm. No, Earth has a chance only because I came. If I had let them follow blind, they would have arrived with no warning. With me here, your defenses can learn, your people can prepare, and the ship can teach more than I ever could. Mara leaned back, her mind racing. She saw the faces of billions who did not know the sky, was already stirring with predators. She saw Earth's armies, brave but naive against a machine born to consume, and she saw the strange ship pulsing softly, as if waiting for the right question. Then teach us, Mara said firmly. Show us how this ship listens, how it bonds, how it survives storms no human was meant to walk through. Arlen's eyes softened with relief. That is why I asked for a trial, he said. Not because I enjoy spectacle, but because the ship will not obey rank or badge. It will only answer courage. It will only open to one who dares to trust it like a living friend. Outside the glass, the ship shimmered. For a moment, every person in the room felt as though it was listening, deciding, weighing. The child's laugh from earlier still seemed to echo in its frame. Mara gave the order, prepare the vacuum yard, gather volunteers, not soldiers forced by order, but people willing to risk without promise. If this ship chooses one of us, we will know your words carry weight. If it does not, We will know you are just a man with an old log and a dangerous toy." Arlen smiled faintly, tired but certain. "Then you will see," he said, "because the ship has already chosen to come home." As security escorted him toward holding, Mara's console blinked with a warning. A deep-range sensor near Neptune had just registered a flicker, faint, jagged, alien. The system marked it as a possible anomaly, but Mara felt her stomach drop. She looked at the Riverstone Drive, then at the silent ship docked in her bay, and understood the hunters were already tasting the edge of Earth's sky. The vacuum yard at Ceres Arc was a wide chamber carved into the hollow of the station, its walls thick with armor, its air emptied by roaring pumps until only silence and stars remained. This was where ships were tested against the void, where new hulls proved they could endure emptiness. Now it would become a place of trial, not for steel, but for courage. Crowds gathered behind observation glass, technicians, cadets, off-duty workers, even children clinging to their parents' sleeves. Rumors had already spread faster than official reports. A ship from Karth, piloted by a survivor, claiming to hold knowledge no council dared to admit. And now, it would decide for itself who could touch its heart. Mara stood at the edge of the platform, her arms folded, her eyes sharp. She had chosen not to command soldiers for this test. Instead, she had asked for volunteers, not from the military, but from the station's people. If the ship truly chose courage, then rank would not matter, only resolve. Arlen waited calmly, helmet in hand, his expression patient. "The ship will not harm them," he said softly. "But it will not lie either. If they reach it with fear hollow in their chest, it will turn them away," Jin sneered. "Or it will obey you alone, and this is just theater." Still, his gaze kept flicking to the ship where it rested in the void, tethered only by docking beams. Its surface rippled faintly, like water waiting for a hand to disturb it. The first volunteer stepped forward, a young woman named Tessa, an engineer's apprentice. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her suit, but her chin stayed high. "I've fixed broken hulls since I was 12, she said. "If it wants honesty, I've lived with it every day." She walked across the chamber floor toward the silent ship. Her boots clanged against the steel deck, echoing into the emptiness. The ship's surface shimmered as she approached, dew lights forming lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. Tessa reached out, her gloved hand brushing against the strange gray hull. A sound like a deep chord hummed through the chamber. Not loud, but felt in every rib. The lights flowed once toward her, then dimmed, gently pushing her hand away. Tessa bowed her head and walked back, not ashamed, but thoughtful. "It didn't want me," she whispered. The crowd murmured, not mockery, not laughter, but the awe of seeing something judge without words. The second volunteer, a miner named Kalo, broad-shouldered and rough, marched forward. "I've fought vacuum leaks with nothing but my shirt," he growled. "Let's see if your ghost ship respects that." He slammed his hand on the hull, muscles straining as if he could force acceptance. The ship's surface went black under his palm. The dew lights flickered harsh. A shock rippled through his glove, sending him stumbling back. He cursed and spat. "It's a trick," he barked, but the crowd saw fear in his retreat. Mara kept her face calm, but inside, she felt a strange respect for the ship. It was not humiliating the unworthy, only showing them a mirror of what they carried inside. Then, without prompting, a slim figure stepped forward. It was the same child who had touched the viewing glass the day before. Her parents cried out, but Mara raised a hand, holding them back. Something in her gut told her this moment mattered. The girl's name was Elin, and she carried no badge, no duty, only the fearless curiosity of youth. She walked up to the ship. With small, steady steps, she placed both palms against the hull as if it were simply another friend waiting to be hugged. The dew lights exploded into color, cascading along the ship's seams. The hum grew louder, sweeter, resonant. Everyone watching felt it vibrate in their teeth. The ship opened, a small seam parting like lips breaking into a smile. Inside was a glow like liquid dawn, soft yet infinite. The crowd gasped. Mara's throat tightened. Jin swore under his breath. "Impossible," he hissed. Arlen knelt, his voice reverent. "It has chosen," he said. "Not me, not rank, but a heart unburdened by pride. It chose kindness and trust." The child stepped back, eyes wide, hands glowing faintly where the light had touched her. She looked at her parents, then at Mara. "It feels like it knows my name," she whispered. Her parents rushed forward to hold her, trembling with both fear and pride. The chamber buzzed with disbelief. Some shouted that it was nonsense. Others whispered that they had just seen history tilt. Mara's mind spun. A child, not a soldier, not a leader, had been recognized by a ship forged on the deadliest world known to the stars. What did that mean for Earth, for humanity's place in the galaxy? Arlen straightened, meeting Mara's eyes. "Now you see why I said rank does not matter," he said. "The ship is alive in ways your council cannot legislate. It looks for those who carry courage without arrogance, and hope without calculation." Jin's face flushed with anger. "So you'll put our future in the hands of a child," he spat. Arlen shook his head, calm as stone. "Not in her hands alone. She is proof that the ship can find what it seeks anywhere in your people. That is the lesson. It does not need a perfect general, only a willing heart." Before Mara could answer, alarms screamed across the station. A red flash filled the observation glass. The deep-range sensors had lost silence. Now they sang warnings, jagged transmissions pouring in. The hunters had arrived at Neptune's orbit, a swarm of broken mirror. Machines now angled inward, their trajectory unbending, their hunger undeniable. The crowd panicked, voices rising. Mara slammed her fist against the console. "Seal the yard, move the ship to defense prep," she ordered. Her voice cut through the chaos, calm but urgent. Arlen's face was grim. "It is sooner than I hoped," he said, "but not too late. The ship has already begun to bond. It will fight with you if you let it." Mara's eyes flicked to the child, still glowing faintly. Her choice was clear. Humanity's trial was no longer theoretical. The hunters were coming, and Earth's survival depended on a trust they had only just begun to test. The hunters came. Like a tide of broken glass, they spilled across the dark edge of Neptune's orbit. Each one a shard of night sharpened into a killing shape. They did not drift as fleets do, with strategy and hesitation. They surged as if pulled by hunger itself, a hunger older than war. On the station, alarms burned red, sirens wailed, voices shouted. Defense crews scrambled to load batteries that had never fired at an enemy like this. Mara stood before the observation screens, her jaw locked. She had fought raiders, smugglers, even pirate fleets, but never had she seen machines that moved with such cold purpose. They were not ships carrying soldiers. They were weapons carrying instinct. Arlen's face was pale but steady. "They are not here to negotiate," he said. "They are built for one task, to erase any who dare tame Karth. They sense the drive that learned from storms, and they will not stop until it is ash," Jin spat bitterly. "So we are prey." Arlen shook his head. "No, not prey. We are a challenge. They do not hate. They do not fear. They only finish." The crowd that had once filled the vacuum yard now scattered through corridors. Some wept, others prayed, others clenched fists. But all knew their world had just tilted toward fire. In the docking bay, the Karth ship pulsed, dew lights cascading faster, as if it had already sensed the enemy, as if it had been waiting for this moment. The child Elin still stood with her. "Parents," her hands faintly glowing, she whispered, "They're loud," and pressed her palms to her ears. Mara knelt beside her. "What do you mean?" she asked. Elin shook her head. "Not sound, feeling, like sharp teeth in the sky." Arlen nodded, his eyes grave. "She is hearing what the ship hears." Council transmissions began flooding the comms. Demands for explanation, accusations of treachery, threats of seizure. Mara silenced them with a single order. Mute outside channels! We do not have time! For politics. Her officers hesitated, but obeyed. They trusted her steel even when doubt gnawed their bones. The hunters split into 3 waves, one angled toward Earth, one toward Mars, one directly at Ceres' arc. Their speed was unreal, each shard bending light around itself as it sliced through vacuum. Arlen leaned closer to the glass, his voice low. They do not waste. Each wave is a scalpel. They will cut arteries, not flesh, Mara's heart hammered. She knew her station's defenses could hold against pirates, maybe even a fleet. But against these predators, the odds bent toward despair. What is their weakness? She demanded. Arlen's lips tightened. They have only one. They expect storms to kill their prey. They never learned what humanity learned, to bend storms into allies. He turned to the Karth ship. It can outthink them, but only if it awakens fully. It has begun to bond, but it still slumbers. To wake it, we must return to Karth, unlock the core, and teach it the last song of storms, Jin scoffed. You mean abandon Earth while those things cut through our defenses? Arlen's gaze was sharp. If we stay, we die unprepared. If we go, we may return with a weapon they cannot swallow. The chamber shook as the first hunter wave struck the outer defense net. Light filled the screens, beams of energy carving into armor, drones launched, missiles fired. Yet the hunters slipped through, splitting and reforming. Each loss did not weaken them. It multiplied their angles. The people in the viewing galleries pressed closer, watching their fragile defenses crumble. Hope flickered like a candle against hurricane winds. Mara slammed her fist onto the console. We cannot hold like this, she admitted. Her voice trembled but did not break. She turned to Arlen. If we go to Karth, can we come back before Earth falls? Arlen's eyes softened with both sorrow and certainty. Karth is cruel, but it teaches fast. The ship can fold the journey. It can bring us back before the hunters close their jaws fully. But the choice is yours, Commander. The ship pulsed brighter, as if urging her. Dew lights surged down its spine, painting the bay in ripples of stormlight. Elin touched the glass again, her small voice steady. It wants us to trust. It says waiting is losing. Mara closed her eyes for a heartbeat. She thought of the billions below, the blue oceans and crowded cities, the songs sung in markets, the laughter in night streets. All of it balanced on her choice. When she opened her eyes, they burned like iron. Prepare the ship, she ordered. Assemble a crew, volunteers only. We are going to Karth, Jin swore under his breath. But even he did not argue now. The sky itself was tearing open, and only the stranger and his ship offered a thread of hope. As Mara's team boarded the Karth ship, the hull seemed to shift, shaping ladders and paths where none had been, welcoming them like veins opening to carry blood. The air inside smelled faintly of ozone and rain. The walls glowed with soft pulses, like the heartbeat of a living thing. Arlen guided them. Do. Not force it, let it lead. It remembers storms. It remembers patience. At the center chamber, seats folded from the floor like blooming flowers, each one humming faintly with warmth. Mara sat, feeling a current flow through her bones. Not cold, not hot, but steady. The ship sealed itself, clamps releasing, and for a moment, silence pressed heavier than gravity. Then the stars bent, light, folding like cloth, and Ceres' arc blurred behind them. In a breath, the hunters were left gnashing at empty space. The ship sang, a low thunder roll that shook the marrow yet promised safety. But as the stars unwound again, the view outside was no comfort. Karth filled the screens, a world of storms and fire. Its clouds twisted like serpents, lightning laced every horizon. Mountains cracked under pressure storms, rivers glowed with minerals that boiled under alien suns. Even through glass, the crew felt the weight of its hostility. Mara gripped her seat, whispering, "How can life exist here?" Arlen answered with quiet pride. "Because life refuses to bow, and because humanity once decided that if it could survive here, it could survive anywhere." The ship tilted, descending into the roaring skies, and every heart aboard understood that their trial had only begun. The skies of Karth opened like a wound of fire and thunder. The Karth ship pierced the atmosphere, and at once the storm greeted it like an old rival. Lightning struck its hull again and again, not with malice, but with recognition. Each strike rolled across the frame as if the storm itself was testing whether the ship still remembered its birth. Inside, the crew clung to their seats, Mara's knuckles white against the armrest, Jin swearing into his helmet, technicians whispering. Prayers. Elin sat quietly, her small hands pressed against the glowing wall. "It's not angry," she said. "It's teaching." Her words cut through the fear like a steady flame. Arlen nodded, his face calm despite the chaos outside. "Karth does not punish," he said. "It reveals. If you do not learn, it will end you. If you listen, it will shape you." The ship dove through layers of atmosphere, each one a world of its own. Hail the size of houses crashed past them. Rivers of molten rain poured sideways. Creatures with wings of glass soared through cyclones. Mara stared in awe. How could anyone survive this? Arlen's voice was almost reverent. Because humanity refused to believe impossible meant forbidden. The ship angled lower, heading toward a valley carved from black stone. Lightning stitched the ridges in endless arcs, and at the valley's center lay a crater filled with glowing crystal. The ship slowed, lowering itself into the crater as if returning to a cradle. Its lights pulsed brighter, almost joyous. Arlen stood. "This is where the core was forged," he said. "The storms here teach the last bond. Only here can the ship decide if it will fight for you." Mara rose, steadying herself against the shifting floor. "What do we need to do?" she asked. Arlen looked at each of them in turn. "You do not command the core. You earn it. The ship will test you, not with weapons, but with what you carry inside." Jin scoffed. Another riddle, but his voice shook. The storm outside howled like a choir of giants, and the walls of the ship began to shimmer. Images spread across the interior, not random, but personal. Mara gasped, seeing her father's face. A memory from long ago. His voice echoed. "You left Earth to serve the stars. But did you leave behind what makes you human?" Her throat tightened. She wanted to answer. But the image vanished like smoke, replaced by the pulsing glow. Of the core chamber, beside her, a technician fell to his knees. Whispering his sister's name, seeing her in the storm's light, another crew member clutched his chest, hearing the voice of a lost comrade. Each was confronted, not by fear alone, but by the weight of choices they had carried. Elin stepped forward, untouched by panic. She reached out and pressed her hands against the pulsing wall. Her small voice carried louder than the thunder. "It doesn't want to hurt us. It wants to know if we can still hope when hope looks small." The storm outside seemed to pause, lightning holding its breath. Arlen guided them toward the heart chamber. At its center stood a sphere of shifting crystal, glowing with stormlight. It pulsed in rhythm with their own heartbeats, growing brighter whenever someone faced their memory without turning away. Mara forced herself to step closer. She whispered to the image of her father. "I left Earth, but I never left being human. I carry it into every sky." The crystal flared, as if satisfied. Jin trembled, sweat pouring down his brow. He saw the faces of men he had condemned in past trials. He growled through his teeth. "I made choices because someone had to. I will not let shame chain me, not now." The crystal flared again. Brighter than before, one by one, the crew faced their storms. Each confession, each acceptance, fed the core. The ship sang louder, its hum now filled with warmth instead of dread. Finally, Elin stepped into the very center, her small frame bathed in stormlight, She looked into the crystal, and instead of fear, she smiled. "You already know me," she whispered. "I'm not brave like them. I'm just not afraid to care." The crystal's glow erupted, flooding the chamber with light so pure it burned away every shadow. The ship roared, a sound like thunder turning into music. The walls reshaped, forming wings of energy, panels sliding open as if the ship itself had grown. Lightning from outside poured into the hull, not to destroy, but to merge. The ship became more alive than ever before. Arlen's voice rose above the chorus. "It is awake. Now the heart has chosen. You are no longer passengers. You are its bond, its crew, its family." Mara felt tears sting her eyes, not of sorrow, but of fierce resolve. She looked around at her people, bruised by memories yet stronger for them, and she knew the storm had given them something the galaxy could never vote on: unity born of fire. Outside, Karth's skies twisted, and far beyond, the hunters drew closer. Following the scent of the awakened core, they would not hesitate, they would not reason, but they would find a ship now fully alive, bonded to humans who had faced themselves and endured. The crew strapped back into their seats. The ship lifted. From the crater, lightning following like banners, Mara spoke into the comm, her voice steady. "We are ready," she said. "Let the galaxy see what it means when humanity listens to storms." The ship broke free of Karth's sky, rising through chaos as if it were nothing more than a song's crescendo. The core pulsed in harmony with every heart aboard, and for the first time, the hunter's hunger would meet something not forged by fear, but by defiance and hope. The Karth ship rose from the storm crater with wings of light. Each strike of lightning no longer felt like assault, but like applause. The storm had accepted the bond, and now the ship carried more than passengers. It carried a crew shaped by trial. Above the clouds, the sky turned black again, stars gleaming cold and sharp. But the silence was broken quickly. Red warnings burned. Across the console, hunters had followed the scent, their jagged shapes slicing through the void like shards of broken mirror. Mara steadied her voice. "Shields up, weapons primed." Yet the ship responded not with metal shutters or cannons, but with a deep hum. The walls pulsed with stormlight. Arlen's eyes lit with recognition. "It is teaching us again," he said. "It will not fight with simple fire. It will fight with what we have learned." The first wave of hunters descended, beams of red. Energy lancing toward the ship, Mara braced for impact, but instead of shields, the ship bent light around itself. Stormlight wrapped its hull like a cloak. The beams slid past as if striking water. The crew gasped. Jin shouted, "That's impossible!" But Arlen shook his head. "No, it's Karth's lesson. You don't block the storm, you flow with it." The ship sang louder, its hum vibrating through their bones. Panels opened along its frame, releasing arcs of lightning that coiled into shapes. For a heartbeat, the arcs looked like the great leviathans of Karth's skies, massive serpents of thunder. The hunters faltered, their formation breaking. For the first time, the predators hesitated. Mara seized the moment. "Push them back," she ordered. The storm serpent struck, not with brute force, but with precision. Each arc slipped into gaps in the hunters' formations, unraveling them like thread. Shards of mirror shattered into dust, dissolving into the void. The crew cheered, their fear replaced with fierce hope, but the hunters adapted. More poured from the dark, their numbers endless. They split into swarms, surrounding the ship, beams converging like teeth. The ship shuddered, its hum faltering. Elin pressed her glowing hands against the wall, whispering, "Don't give up, we're still here." The light steadied. The hum deepened. Arlen's voice rose, urgent. "It needs us. It cannot fight alone. We are part of the bond now. Close your eyes. Feel the storm." Mara obeyed. She closed her eyes, and in the darkness, she felt the rhythm. She remembered the memory of her father, his voice asking if she had left her humanity behind. She whispered, "No, I carry it still." The stormlight inside her chest flared one by one. The crew followed, each person feeding the bond not with weapons, but with truth. Jin's stubbornness turned into steel resolve. The technician's grief shifted into courage. Arlen's endless endurance poured into the core, and Elin, small and fearless, gave only her quiet care. A light so steady it anchored them all. The ship roared back to life. This time it moved like no machine ever had. It danced between beams, weaving through swarms as if guided by instinct older than stars. Lightning shaped itself not into serpents now, but into shields, blades, wings. Each strike mirrored a lesson learned. Every survival was a memory written into the hull. Hunters fell by the dozens, shattered by arcs that bent through them, confused by a target that fought like a storm instead of a ship. Yet even as they fell, more came. The crew felt exhaustion press against their bond. The ship's hum grew strained. Mara opened her eyes, sweat on her brow. "It can't last forever," she said. Arlen placed a hand on the console. "Then we teach it one more lesson, Karth's greatest truth. You cannot fight the storm forever, but you can outlast it by turning its strength into your own." He guided them. "Focus on the energy they fire. Don't resist it. Absorb it." The ship shifted again. Its hull shimmered, dew lights swirling into new patterns. The next beam that struck did not burn or shatter. Instead, the ship swallowed it. The red light twisting into the storm's blue, energy cascaded through the core. The hum swelled into a song of triumph. The hunters recoiled, confused. Their own fire had become their enemy. Mara shouted, "Return it!" The ship released the absorbed energy in a single pulse, a storm wave that tore through the swarm. Hundreds of hunters dissolved into fragments. Silence filling the void for the first time since the battle began. The crew collapsed back into their seats, gasping, laughing, weeping. Elin leaned her head against the glowing wall, whispering, "You did it. You listened." The ship's lights pulsed gently in answer, like a heartbeat at rest, but Arlen's face stayed grave. "This was only the first lesson," he warned. "The hunters will adapt. They always do. They will return in greater numbers, sharper, hungrier. The storm has given us a gift, but it is only the beginning." Mara wiped sweat from her brow, her voice steady once more. "Then we will keep learning as long as it takes. Humanity has always been stubborn." She looked out at the wreckage drifting in the dark, shards of mirror scattered like dust. And stubbornness is one thing storms cannot erase. The ship turned toward Earth, stormlight glowing brighter than any star around it. The crew knew their fight was far from finished. The hunters were wounded, not destroyed. But in that moment, they also knew something greater. Humanity was no longer prey. Earth rose ahead like a blue jewel against the dark, oceans glittering, continents glowing with the soft fire of cities. The Karth ship carried its new crew home, stormlight still dancing across its hull. Every pulse of its heart reminded them that they had faced Karth itself and lived. But their trial was not finished. Council fleets waited in orbit, their ships vast and proud. Each bore the silver banners of authority, bristling with weapons aimed not at the hunters but at the Karth ship. Mara's jaw tightened. "They don't understand what's coming," she whispered. Arlen nodded. "They never have. They believe. Power is granted by votes and rules, but storms never ask permission." A hail crackled through comms. The Council Admiral's voice thundered, "Unidentified vessel. You are ordered to surrender and transfer command codes immediately. Humanity's future cannot be entrusted to a rogue crew." Mara leaned forward, her tone iron. "This is no unidentified vessel. This is a Karth ship, bonded to humanity. If you want it, earn it, as we did." The Admiral's face appeared on screen, stern and cold. "You speak of bonds like superstition. Ships are tools, nothing more." Arlen's eyes burned. "That is why your fleets will fail when the hunters arrive. Tools break, friends endure." As the Council argued, Senses flared. Hunters had returned, larger than before. Their swarms spilled from the void, red eyes gleaming. They had adapted, now moving in tighter formations. Their hunger sharper, their aim precise. The council panicked, voices overlapping, orders colliding. Fleets scrambled into disarray. Some ships fired too soon, beams cutting through empty dark. Others froze, disbelief choking their responses. Mara rose from her seat. "This is it," she said. "We show them, not by words, but by storm." The Karth ship surged forward, weaving between council ships as hunters descended. Lightning flared from its hull, not wild, but controlled. Each arc guided by the crew's bond, each strike singing with purpose. Hunters shattered, but more pressed closer. Their beams cut through council defenses like knives through paper. Earth's people watched from the surface. Their skies filled with fire, streams lit up across the networks, voices crying, "What is happening? Who will save us?" And then they saw it. A ship of stormlight carving through the swarm. Not council, not bureaucracy, but a living storm with a human heart. Jin growled, his hand steady at the console. "They still don't trust us." Mara's gaze stayed on the hunters. "Then we fight anyway, trust will follow survival." The hunters struck in unison, beams converging on the Karth ship. But instead of fleeing, the ship folded light around itself, bending the attack inward. The crew felt the energy surge through them, not burning, but lifting. Stormlight swelled until the ship glowed brighter than the sun. Elin's small voice cut through the roar. "Now! Give it back!" The ship released the absorbed energy in a wave that tore through the swarm. Hundreds of hunters shattered, fragments burning as they fell into Earth's gravity. The planet's people cheered, their fear turning to awe. But still the hunters came, endless, relentless. Arlen's voice was grim. "This is their nature. They will not stop until we show them we are not prey, until we break the lesson they were built to enforce." Mara met his eyes. "And what lesson is that?" Arlen's voice was steady. "That only the Storm Masters survive. Show them humanity is already master." The ship responded, its core flaring brighter. It moved not as a machine but as a storm given will. It danced between hunters, absorbing, releasing, reshaping. Each move echoed the lessons of Karth. Each hum carried the voices of its crew. The hunters faltered, their perfect formations breaking. Their hunger colliding with confusion, council ships fell silent, watching. Their proud admirals speechless as a single bonded crew did what fleets could not. Earth's people cried out in joy. Their voices rose across networks. "That's us. That's humanity." At last, the swarm broke. Hunters scattered, some shattered, some fleeing into the void. For the first time, predators designed to erase masters turned away. The void grew quiet, filled only with the hum of the Karth ship. Mara exhaled, her voice trembling but strong. "It's done," she said. Arlen shook his head. "Not done, only begun. They will return, but now they know. Humanity is not prey. Humanity is storm." The ship drifted above Earth. Its lights soft now, no longer roaring, but steady. Inside, the crew sat in silence, exhausted, tears in their eyes, laughter breaking through their fear. They had survived what no one believed possible. Elin pressed her hands to the wall, whispering, "Thank you." The ship pulsed gently in reply, a heartbeat shared. On council channels, silence reigned. None dared speak against what they had witnessed. None could deny the truth. Humanity had not been promoted by vote. Humanity had claimed mastery by surviving storms no one else dared face. Mara stood tall, her voice carrying across open comms. "You wanted control. You wanted command codes. But you saw it yourselves. This ship is not a tool. It is a bond, and it has chosen humanity, not your titles." Earth's people erupted in cheers, their faith no longer tied to fleets or councils, but to a ship that had listened to storms and chosen to fight with them. Arlen leaned back, his sea glass eyes reflecting the glow of the core. Karth taught us that survival is not about strength alone, but about trust, courage, and care, he said. Now the galaxy has seen it. Humanity was already its master. The ship floated quietly above Earth, stormlight fading into gentle glow. But in the darkness beyond, hunters still stirred, waiting, watching. For now, though, the storm belonged to humanity, and hope had never burned brighter.